Hello and welcome to Career Atoms. Candidates frequently ask me what's a reasonable period of time before they need to make a decision on a job offer and inform the employer. This brief video will provide some guidance on this topic, and to begin with, the simple answer to the question is that a prospective employer would usually let you know when they need to hear an outcome. If they don't, a good general principle is that sooner is always better than later, so that everyone knows exactly where they stand and plans can be made. Unless specified otherwise, it's more commonly accepted that you'd have up to about a week or so before you then really need to relay your decision. Any longer than this, and the employer is going to quickly become pretty uncomfortable and start to question whether you're really serious about the opportunity. Recognise that whilst they may not tell you this, it's possible that they have other strong backup candidates waiting in the wings should you decline the offer. Naturally, they won't want to keep anyone in the background hanging on any longer than necessary, but similarly, they won't want to release and regret candidates until they're certain of your acceptance. I mention all of this so that you can appreciate there's often a genuine desire on the part of the employer to know exactly where they stand as soon as possible. It's also important that you recognise that if you indeed are very interested in the opportunity, you shouldn't just automatically assume that since the employer has now shown their cards and you're the preferred candidate, you can now call all the shots and do whatever you want and they'll just jump. It fortunately doesn't happen often, but I have certainly witnessed offers being withdrawn when candidates have dragged their heels for too long, or they've subsequently acted in a way that's made the employer have second thoughts, especially when the contractual offer paperwork perhaps hasn't been fully drafted or signed. How you engage with the employer or intermediary recruiter, who will feed things back to the employer, even if they indicate otherwise, says quite a lot about you. And to a degree, sometimes even more so than they've perhaps witnessed in an actual interview, because you've lowered the guard and they're now seeing the real you. So maintain the same level of professionalism and don't provide any cause for concern. If an employer feels that they've seen a drastically different person in the aftermath of a positive interview, they'll perhaps rather want to cut ties now than risk being lumbered with a difficult employee who might also upset the apple cart internally once in place. So once you've received an offer, it's good practice and common courtesy to keep lines of communication open and all parties reliably updated. Recruiters hate it when you completely disappear for a number of days. They've had ample prior experience, unfortunately, of candidates professing to them just how keen they are on a role, only to then disappear from the radar for a few days and resurface to say that something's changed or they've opted to take an alternate offer that they'd kept very quiet about. So recruiters are hardwired to start worrying when you don't pick up or return their calls. So be aware of this and accordingly communicate with frequency, honesty and openness. But at the same time, don't feel like you have to respond immediately and make a decision straight away if you genuinely do need some time to weigh everything up and come to a conclusion. If you're dealing with an external recruiter who's acting as the intermediary in the process, just be aware that they will likely put a fair bit of pressure on you to come to a conclusion as soon as possible, and perhaps unsurprisingly, they'll be firmly guiding you to the decision that results in a commission payment. Some recruiters are better than others at giving you enough breathing space during this period, but it's also possible that not everything they say and portray as coming from the employer necessarily does. One of the classic lines I would often hear candidates say is that a recruiter's told them they need to make a decision within a day or two, or there's a risk the employer may well withdraw the offer. Now, I obviously can't guarantee that an employer has never done this, but in all of my dealings with numerous organisations of all shapes and sizes and industries, from startups right through to multi-billion-pound corporations, I've never once had anyone take such a hardline view that a candidate only has 24 to 48 hours to decide on an offer. And I've checked on this same thing with a number of HR colleagues I've worked with over the years, and they've similarly agreed that almost always when a recruiter applies extreme pressure to secure a quick offer acceptance and claims that it's coming from the employer or hiring manager, this probably isn't the reality. I fully appreciate that it may be difficult for some to push back in this situation, for fear of losing the offer if it is actually the case. If you're not sure and you're in any way concerned about potentially missing out altogether, the way I'd handle it is to remain very calm, professional and courteous. Simply explain to the recruiter that this is a really critical decision and you wish to take an extra couple of days to make your decision. And to better ascertain if what the recruiter is telling you is truthful or not, why not call their bluff? Tell the recruitment agency you'd be very happy to have a quick discussion with the hiring manager directly so that you can better understand their perspective on decision timing. You can also explain to them why you may need a little longer than they've stated. If the recruiter agrees to set up a quick 5-minute call, fair enough. Listen to the hiring manager's point of view accordingly and state yours. I'm sure there's a reasonable agreement that you can both come to on decision timing. However, 9 times out of 10, I bet when you make the suggestion to speak to the hiring manager directly, the recruiter will start backtracking, in which case it's more than likely it was just them applying the additional pressure and they don't really want the employer to know that they've misrepresented them. I would also say that if it is actually an employer themselves that's applying extreme pressure, unless there is a very specific and good reason stated for timing criticality, this is probably not a great start to a potential relationship, and it's not someone I'd be very keen to work for personally. In general, good employers are respectful that you'll need some time to evaluate an opportunity, weigh it up against other ones, and make an important decision. Moving jobs is a big step for anyone. So it's in everyone's interest that you come to the correct conclusion. In an ideal world, you'll be able to line up a number of employment options that all come to fruition at the same time, so that you can more fully make a very informed decision. In reality, however, some recruitment processes drag their heels, and you may well need to just make a call on an offer independent of other options. It goes without saying that it's poor form to accept an offer unless you're fully committed. There may be the very occasional situation where something unforeseen dramatically changes the entire landscape, and letting down an employer is wholly unavoidable, but don't provide an offer acceptance to one party if you fully intend anyway to carry on exploring alternate options, and then just backtrack if you feel there's something better out there. Treat everyone fairly, professionally, and with respect. Thank you very much for watching.